With Republicans in control of Congress, Ryan believed he was on the verge of enacting policies he'd advocated for decades. He had been in Washington since he was 22.
This guy is a guy who has been reading the Wall Street Journal editorial page since he was in high school. He read Ayn Rand when he was young, and it kind of defined his political outlook for a lot of his life. He is a small government guy to his core.
Ryan had worked his way up inside the GOP establishment, a vice presidential candidate, and eventually Speaker of the House. Now, with a Republican president, Ryan was ready to act.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to walk you through exactly what the American Health Care Act is.
Written behind closed doors, Ryan hoped he could fast-track the bill.
The time is here, the time is now. This is the moment, and this is the closest this will ever happen. It really comes down...
But the Republican Party had deep divisions, and not everyone was happy to go along.
The bill's rolled out, no real hearings with actual witnesses, no amendments get offered until it gets to Rules Committee and you're told take it or leave it. That's not how you're supposed to do things. So we pushed back against that.
They were the Freedom Caucus, an outgrowth of the Tea Party.
Their whole purpose is to push the party as far as they can toward their end, the conservative end. And they're okay with shutting down government. They're okay with setting a bill on fire and throwing it out the window. That's not how Paul Ryan operates.
The Freedom Caucus refused to support Ryan's bill, insisting it didn't go far enough in dismantling Obamacare.
Republican plan to repeal and replace Obamacare is coming under fire.
President Trump had little patience for the Republicans' ideological squabbles. He wanted a win, and quickly.
He sees, on paper, Republicans control everything. This should be easy, fellas, right? Let's get together. We don't even need the Democrats. But the difference there is, what the Freedom Caucus think is acceptable is not in line with what Paul Ryan and his leadership thinks are acceptable. And so now we're fighting amongst ourselves.
Lawmakers, many of the members of the Freedom Caucus will be meeting with President Trump. These are individuals.
But Trump relied on his own abilities as a salesman. And if Ryan couldn't sell the bill, he would.
Trump said, I can overwhelm this town with my personality. President Trump was trying to overwhelm Washington.
I just want to say that these are folks that were either a no or a maybe.
To consume Washington with his spirit, his personality, his willfulness to get things done.
All of these no's, or potential no's, are all yeses.
That's the businessman in him, that he understands the backslap, the Oval Office lunch, the Air Force One ride. That personal attention, those relationships, can largely help pull one or two votes or make a lasting friend.
Sit down with members of the House Freedom Caucus are vowing not to...
But the president didn't seem to understand or care about the details of the bill he was trying to sell.
It was very striking, and I interviewed a number of the participants of these meetings, just how little Trump understood or really cared to understand the key provisions. He would just simply say, look, guys, we need a win. We need to put this win on the board. And he just seemed uncomprehending and uninterested.
The president was not particularly engaged in the policy details. That was pretty apparent. The president seemed to defer to Congress largely, and basically, whatever you guys pass, I'll sign.
Unable or unwilling to get into the specifics of the bill, Trump struggled to win over the Freedom Caucus and other holdouts.
President Trump, his entire career, had cut deals in non-ideological situations. Now he was confronted with a totally ideological situation. Winning over an ideologue's not like winning over someone in a real estate deal, because they have a core conviction which may prevent them from coming over to the other side. It's not all transactional.
Here at the White House, it is all hands on
deck. The bill was stuck, the president increasingly taking the blame.
Can he get enough Republican votes?
Frustrated, he headed to Capitol Hill to confront his party.
Conservative Republicans are now warning the measure does not...
No more backslapping and cheerleading. Now, an ultimatum.
Can you get the vote, Mr. President?
And so...
Finally, Trump kind of just throws up his hands and says, you know what? This is the ultimatum. You have until this day. You have this deadline. And if you can't get it done, we're moving on.
Mr. President, you can make a persuasive case...
It was classic Donald Trump.
We had a great meeting, and
the Freedom Caucus would either get on board or the president would walk away from the effort to repeal Obamacare and make sure they got the blame.
The pressure was so massive, and this was the atmosphere that the Freedom Caucus was in. They knew the spotlight was theirs.
At the deadline, they decided to call the president's bluff. Ryan headed to the White House to warn Trump that they'd failed.
I'm told Ryan was ice cold, very calm throughout the whole car ride in the visit to the White House because he had to convey a simple message. He did what he could, but the votes weren't there.
I was there. I was in the Oval Office when he arrived. Speaker Ryan was very candid and very forthright. He said, we're going to pull the bill. We don't have the votes.
Donald Trump is a man who expects action. This notion of pulling a bill is unacceptable. You told me we're going to get it done. And he promised the American people, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. So when he hears we have to pull the bill because we don't have the votes, he's beside himself.
After Ryan left, the president picked up the phone to call the Washington Post, determined that he not be blamed.
I get a call on a Friday afternoon, and it's President Trump. Trump says, I've pulled the bill. He tells me the Republican Party is broken. I don't need this broken Republican Party, he said, if they're not going to really help me, if they're not going to get their stuff together. What he really wanted was a win. He wasn't pushing for an ideological win. He wasn't pushing for a political win. He wanted a win for Donald Trump, and the Republican Party failed him.
Congress failed to pass a Republican bill to reform.
In the end, the self-proclaimed closer couldn't close the deal.
The president, the salesman, the dealmaker had also failed.
The Trump administration will be able to get one passed.
President Trump remains here in Washington licking his wounds after failing to repeal Obamacare.